everyone. Tonight I am making steak. So I've got some ribeye steak that I'm going to make with some sauteed mushrooms, spinach over, and garlic over quinoa. I have this Montreal steak seasoning that I get at Costco, of course, where I get everything else. And I'm just going to put it on both sides of the steak and just season my steak both sides. And then let that set while I prepare the mushrooms and spinach side dish. I have my quinoa cooking, and this is going to be cooking while I'm working on everything else because it does take quite a while. I just went ahead and put it in my rice cooker, and you can just read the instructions on the package. This is red quinoa, and it's usually 1 cup to 2.5 cups of water. So that's going to go ahead and cook away while I get these mushrooms and the garlic ready. The spinach I bought already prepped from Costco, so it actually doesn't need me to do anything, so that's nice. For the mushrooms, so you don't want to wet mushrooms. You don't want to run them under the sink because they will absorb all of that water and then they won't brown properly. So just a paper towel I get wet so that I can wipe any extra dirt off, and that's all you need to do with a mushroom. So wipe the dirt off. I like to cut the ends and then save these little guys for stock. So I have a bag in the freezer. I put all of my extra wrappers for onions, peelings for carrots, stems of mushrooms, parsley stems, anything that I can throw in a good chicken stock or beef stock later. So just so I'm not wasting. So I'm going to save those, and then this is pretty basic, but I'm just going to show it just in case anybody's not sure how to do that. So I'm just going to continue here chopping these mushrooms, and you want a good amount because they do cook down. It looks like a lot once I get these all chopped, but trust me, they're going to get a lot smaller. So I want to show you also how to do this garlic. The garlic, if you haven't done this before, there's a bulb, and you're just going to take it and smash it. And so after you smash it, you save your little, or get rid of your little wrappers. And you can actually save these little guys. They can go in stock and flavor stock, or you can boil them and use them. Put them in a spray, put the water in a spray bottle and put it in your garden, spray it on your plants to keep the bugs away from your plants. So that's another good thing that you can do with your garlic wrappers. So if you have a garlic press, you can use one of those, but just in case you don't, I'll show you what you want to do here. You just want to mince it, and mincing just means cutting it really fine. So just take it and run your knife through it one way, and then I like to take it and run my knife through it the other way. And it's not a perfect mince, but it doesn't have to be. We're cooking at home, we have other things to do. We don't have time to sit here and get a perfect mince. So that's good enough, and it'll be nice big chunks in our spinach and garlic. So the next thing we're going to do is just saute it. So I'll show you that next. Of some ghee, and I'll probably use a scoop of coconut oil as well. And I just happen to have, it takes a lot, by the way. Mushrooms want to soak up the oil when you put them in there, which is good because healthy fats are good for us, and I'm always looking for ways to get healthy fat into my diet, more healthy fat. And I want the flavor of the steak in my pan before I do the mushrooms and spinach, so that flavor transfers over, and it also cuts down on dishes, which is never a bad thing. So I'm going to take my steak and put it in the oil. Always do that test where you dip it in first, make sure it sizzles, and then just drop it in. So the reason I'm pan searing the steak, there's a couple of reasons. One, to get, again, more healthy fat. And then two, you might not have a barbecue, or maybe it's cold out. And quite frankly, I think that pan-seared steaks just taste better. So the steak has been in the pan for about 3 to 4 minutes. I'm just going to lift it up a little bit and peek, and it looks like it's getting a nice crust, which is really all I care about. And I'm just going to flip it over to the other side. So it's only been about 2 minutes on this side because I can see it's getting a nice crust, and I'd much rather undercook this steak than overcook it because, again, I can always finish it in the sauce, and there's a little bit of carryover cooking after I take it out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove this and set it to the side. That's just going to sit there and rest. And now for the mushrooms. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the mushrooms in, and they should sizzle a little bit just like they are. And the thing about mushrooms is that if you really want to get an excellent flavor out of them, in my opinion, this is my opinion, You need to fry them in batches or cook them in batches because then they can get rid of their moisture, and again, that's going to intensify the flavor. So it does take a little bit more time, it's a little bit more labor intensive, but it's worth it in the end. So just put them in there in a nice even layer. If you crowd them too much, if you've seen that movie Julie and Julia, you hear her talk about don't crowd the mushrooms, and that's true. If you crowd them, they'll steam and they won't get nice and brown. So a little bit of salt, and then I'm just going to let them cook for a few minutes. It's only been about a minute to 2 minutes, and my mushrooms are already starting to look kind of translucent, so it's time to give them a little flip, and you can see that they're starting to get brown underneath. I'm ready to do the last batch of mushrooms. I've got the brown ones over here, and I'm noticing my pan just needs a little bit more fat. So I wanted to show you guys that sometimes it does get a little dry because those mushrooms really suck up the fat. And add a little bit more. And then go for my last little bit of mushrooms. Whoops, one escaped. So mushrooms in. Finished browning the mushrooms. I'm just going to take the garlic and do it. I'm doing it separately. You could do it in the beginning or you can do it now. I guess it doesn't really matter. The key is that garlic burns really fast and becomes really acrid quickly. So you just want to give it a little bit of sauteing. You don't want to do too much to it. And so I like to give a little bit now because it's going to season the pan for us for the spinach, which is next. In goes the spinach. And with spinach, it takes a heck of a lot more than you probably think it's going to. This big pan that I'm doing is going to really cook down. And, whoops, another one escaped. And become not very much at all. So what I'm going to do is add a ton of spinach. We like our greens, like our veggies. And then I'm going to smother it, which means big lid on top of the pan. And what's going to happen is the moisture from the spinach is going to kind of steam everything. We'll check it here in about, I'm going to say 2 minutes. Spinach has been cooking, and it's nice and wilted. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a little stir. Add a little bit of salt, just a quick little bit. I believe in salting everything in layers so that each layer has a good amount of flavor. I'm going to add a little bit of beef stock. And I make my beef stock homemade. I'm going to go ahead and post a recipe for you guys. This is called deglazing, by the way, so if I refer to deglazing, this is what I mean. It just gets all those little bits off the bottom of the pan. So now we have some nice wilted spinach with good flavor. And that was probably only about 1/4 cup of beef stock. This is just sauteing a little bit. I'm going to take and add my mushrooms and my garlic back in. And you can see that we're starting to get this really beautiful little mushroom and spinach side dish that will go really, really well over the quinoa. So I think now is a good time to give it a taste and make sure that we've seasoned everything enough. It's good when you taste it, for one, not to burn yourself, but for two, to get a bite of each thing and make sure that both things have good flavor. And it does. It doesn't need any more salt in my opinion, but I may let it just go for a couple more seconds and just get that extra water out of it because that'll just intensify the flavor more. If your steak, you're concerned about it, maybe it's not quite done or maybe it got cold in this time, really easy. Warm it back up again. Just take it, stick it in the pan, add that little bit of juice, and let it sit there for a minute and warm back up. Here in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and plate just with the steak over some quinoa. So if you just take it on the side and slice it like this, at this point too you can check it. That's a mid-rare, medium rare, so that's how we like it. If that's not done enough for you, here's our finished dinner. We have steak, ribeye steak over red quinoa, and then our side dish of sauteed spinach, garlic, and mushrooms. So bon appetit to us.